I now have the privilege to introduce our final speaker. Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Sir Peter Blake Leader, and best-selling author of Unfair Fight and Medicine's 4-Minute Mile, Dr. Sam Hazledine is regarded as a thought leader in evolving how doctors live and work. He is the founder and managing director of MedRecruit, which featured in the Deloitte Fast 50, wealth management company MedCapital, and wellness company MedWorld. Dr. Hazledine successfully lobbied the World Medical Association to update the Declaration of Geneva to include doctor health and well-being. Sam believes success lies at the intersection of mindset and action, and he's passionate about sharing lessons he's learned to help doctors live exceptional lives so they can practice their best medicine. Please join me in welcoming Sam.
I believe in our profession. I believe in who you are. I believe in the work you do. And I also believe that we need to do better. I also believe that we can do better. I think, we've heard so much today. We've got the clicker. We've heard so much today about the challenges we face and, who we are and what we're doing about it and the work that's being done to actually address what we're doing. And I think the core theme that really comes through is we've got to heal from within, don't we? We've got to be the solution to the challenge that we face. So a little bit about who I am and about my journey as a doctor. I went to medical school in Otago. I wasn't an exemplary medical student. And one of my coping mechanisms was alcohol. I abused alcohol, drunk too much. That led to a head injury in 2002 that put me in a coma for a couple of days. When I came out of that coma, the doctor said to me I might not regain full brain function, probably wouldn't return to medical school, wouldn't ski again, which was something that I was pretty passionate about. But that really taught me to get my life in order. It taught me that for my life to change, I had to raise my standards, and I want to go about doing that. The medical council, Lynn, was part of my journey in the first year. So I've been down that path because of that, with weekly blood tests and having to go and see a psychiatrist and things like that. So my career as a doctor was quite varied. As a junior doctor, I saw that a lot of my classmates were becoming disillusioned with the profession. A lot were leaving the profession. And I hypothesized at the time that it was because our profession hadn't evolved to cater to a younger generation of doctors and what we wanted. There was an old guard saying, this is how it is, this is how it's always been, this is how it's going to be for you. And there was a group of young doctors going, well, see you later. And so I set up MedRecruit at the time. It was to help doctors create a lifestyle in medicine, to take them out of the pressure of that climbing the ladder, to try out a few things, live at the beach, make some money, have some fun, figure out what they loved in medicine so that they'd actually come back into it, pick a specialty that really meant something to them and be passionate about it. MedRecruit grew really fast. It's now the largest medical staffing company in Australasia. But I also found that obviously career is not the only, it's the number one stress of doctors. But the more I was in the space, it was really a privilege for me to work with so many doctors. The more I was in the space, the more I could see over the last decade that obviously career wasn't the only issue. I started doing work and research into doctor wellbeing and stress in 2013. And what I found there was pretty was shocking for me, and I'll talk a bit about that. But I decided at that point I set up MedWorld to help focus on well-being for doctors, and we also set up MedCapital, which is a full-service financial services company, to help manage all that, because that's actually the number 2 stress of doctors. But the thing is, back in 2013, I started doing all this work into stress and burnout, and I approached it like a doctor. I threw myself into it, working long hours, obsessing over it, thinking about someone else, not myself. As we do, as you do all the time, isn't it? You think about your patients before yourself. And one day I was starting to feel tired, starting to feel a bit less inspired. I kept going because that's what we do, don't we? We dig in. If it gets hard, we dig in harder. And I just kept going, and I was doing the work and getting results. But, the enjoyment had gone for me. And one day I was doing research into burnout assessment tools. And I just thought I'd do one myself. And I did this assessment, and I came out right on the end of the spectrum in terms of burnout. I was fully burnt out. Here I was researching into it, an expert in stress and burnout, and I'd failed to even acknowledge it in myself. That was a picture of me. We separated, but my wife took a photo of me. We're sitting there with the kids doing some stuff, and she took a photo, and I was like, why are you taking a photo of me? And she was like, because, Sam, you look like shit. And I was like, she's like, look, you do so much for what you're doing in terms of doctors and impact and things, but you've forgotten completely about yourself. And so I keep that photo as a reminder. But it also gives me empathy with doctors to understand that we don't see it in ourselves, do we? 50% of you are experiencing, statistically speaking, are experiencing symptoms of burnout. But I bet 50% of you don't acknowledge it. Back in 2013, I called it medicine's dirty little secret. It wasn't particularly well publicized, particularly well talked about. What's fantastic is it is now being talked about. 87% of doctors are stressed beyond levels that are productive. The recent study done in New Zealand, a couple of years ago now, over 50% of specialists are experiencing symptoms of burnout. But that's not the worst of it. We know that stress and burnout leads to depersonalization. It leads to an emotional disconnection from our patients, and that causes us to make mistakes. The way we're being as doctors is causing us to harm our patients. Who here can tell me what the core principle of our profession is? First, do no harm. It's simple, isn't it? And we apply it as doctors rigorously to the procedures we carry out, to the medicines we prescribe. Nothing gets to a patient without a double-blind, randomized controlled trial, does it? But we don't apply it to ourselves. We don't apply it to who we are. We don't apply it to how we're behaving as doctors within our profession. But I would propose that is as important, if not more important, than the medicines we're prescribing. The way we're being as doctors is harming our patients. And we've all heard about the cost, haven't we? Throughout many of these presentations. The cost to us as doctors is obvious. Stress, burnout, substance abuse, suicide rates, mental health issues. We're higher than the rest of the population. There's a cost to our patients, which we know. It's undeniable now. And there's a cost to our families. We have higher rates of divorce, higher rates of marriage dissatisfaction. It's a challenging profession. The cost is huge. But, and here's the great thing about it, if 50% of doctors are experiencing burnout, then 50% aren't. If 87% are overstressed, then 13% aren't. Back in 2013, I began research into this. It was in the early days of this, because it wasn't a particularly well talked about thing then. But I was driven by a question, look, if some doctors aren't stressed, if some doctors are thriving, what is it that they're doing differently? How are they behaving differently to the doctors who are struggling, the majority of doctors? I look for patterns of behavior, not personality, because we can control what we do, we can't necessarily control who we are. And what I found was really profound. What I found, there were 8 core patterns of behavior that doctors who thrive within a difficult system, because let's be honest, the system's broken if 50% of people are burned out, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But the doctors who are thriving practice these 8 core patterns of behavior more commonly than the doctors who didn't. They behave differently. They learnt different patterns. The beauty of that is that means we can all do that, but the one common thing across doctors who are thriving is that they prioritize themselves. They prioritize their well-being. They didn't see it as a secondary thing. They saw it as something they just had to do. Prior to 1954, it was considered impossible to run a 4-minute mile. Doctors, in their ultimate wisdom, because we're always right, aren't we? Doctors even said that the human body couldn't handle it, that the heart would explode if we tried to put ourselves through such exertion. But on May 6th, 1954, so 2 days ago, start of this Congress, Dr. Roger Bannister, after completing ward rounds in the morning, went out and ran a mile in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Now, interesting thing about that is 46 days later, John Landy ran a mile in under 4 minutes. The following year, 16 people ran a mile in under 4 minutes. Nowadays, high school kids are running miles in under 4 minutes. Now, it took one person A doctor, incidentally, but it took one person to go first, to show what was possible. It took one person to introduce a different paradigm of how we think to change the behaviours of others. Now, I think as a profession, medically, we're operating, this is the core of our problem. We're operating under an outdated paradigm. We're operating under a paradigm that says that I will sacrifice everything because my patients come first. Now, as a profession, the patient does come first. The interests of the patient must come first. We've got to think about that. We've got to consider that. But the problem with going, I'll sacrifice everything because my patient comes first, means that the person delivering the care becomes suboptimal. It's a binary thing, isn't it? And I think this is the core of the problem. We've made it binary. It's which comes first. That's like saying, the car is more important than the oil. Forget about it. If you don't have oil in the car's not going to work. So I would propose that, to change this, to actually shift the whole, tide, and I believe we need to do that, we need to introduce a new paradigm. A paradigm that says I take care of myself because my patients deserve me at my best. This is not a binary thing. This is not them or me. This is an and, not an or. It's like, it's not the chicken or the egg, and I think that's where we've fallen into a problem. It's not a chicken or the egg situation. This is the car needs the oil for us to actually operate in a better way. And I think we have an opportunity, and this to me is the exciting part here. We have an opportunity to do this, and I think that's what makes this such an exciting time in medicine, because this idea's time has come, because change is happening. Now, I know it's happening pretty slowly, and it starts with words, it starts with conversations. As Alexandra mentioned, it was a few years ago I was speaking to a group of graduating medical students about well-being, and then Dr. Stephen Child got up. He was then president of the New Zealand Medical Association to speak about the profession and what it means to be a doctor, and he held up this Declaration of Geneva, the modern-day Hippocratic Oath, and he held it up as this is the value set of doctors worldwide, this is who we are. And I saw it, and I thought, I felt inspired by it, but then I sort of noticed there's a bit missing. And it was the fact that there was nothing about us, the doctor. And so I started a petition. Some of you guys may have signed it, took it to the World Medical Association. They asked me to present at their annual General Assembly, and then in 2017 they voted unanimously to amend the Declaration of Geneva, the modern-day Hippocratic Oath, to include these words: I will attend to my own health, well-being and abilities in order to provide care of the highest standard. It puts something back on us. It gives us the remit to say that we matter. It gives us the possibility of saying no if we think something's actually going to take us out of that well-being space. It gives us that opportunity. Because I believe, as I said, that this is an exciting time in medicine. We've got an opportunity to change things, but we've got to pick what team we're going to be on. You have to pick what team you're going to be on. You can be on the team of just keep going how you're going. Just keep at it. But that's just going to be more of the same. Or you can be on the team that says, let's actually make this a better profession. Let's think about the junior doctors. Let's think about the medical students. Let's think about that next generation. And let's leave this profession better than we found it. Show of hands here. Put your hands up if you have children. Okay, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if you would have some reservations about recommending medicine as a profession. And keep your hands up, though, if you believe in what we do, that it matters. Look around. Look at this. It's ridiculous. We believe in what we do. We do something that matters, but we wouldn't want our kids to do it. We'd be worried about our children doing it. This is actually what sparked it for me when my little daughter, Zara, she's 8 now, but she said, I want to be a doctor, Daddy. And instead of being excited about it, I just puckered up. I just noticed myself, and I thought, why the hell am I feeling like that? It's because you've got this little thing that you love, and you know that medicine just chews people up and spits them out. It's a great profession, but frick, it's hard, isn't it? It's really bloody hard. And so I thought, well, that's ridiculous. She was 3 at the time. Great, we've got about 20 years to make a change. And we've got that opportunity, don't we? We have the chance to make a change. So I'm going to share with you just a couple of, a few of the things that I found And what I'd encourage you in my research, what I'd encourage you to do is just pick one thing. Just take one thing away from this conference, whether it's what I share with you, whether it's an idea you got from one of these people up here, one of the speakers, but take one thing and do something about it. Don't take notes. Don't just say, yep, that's all great, and then go back to it. It's time to be the change that you want to see. And let's see, I think that's so important. I call it the exceptional method because I think it's about actually how can we be our best self? How can we be an exception to the rule? Because, if the majority are struggling, let's make sure that we're not. But I think, the language around it is actually, it doesn't capture the fact that I think that by doing this, we actually help our colleagues. We help each other. And I think about it as like a journey. Medicine is like an epic, epic journey, isn't it? And if you were going to go on a massive journey, a road trip, there'd be certain things you just wouldn't set out with. Say a 5,000-kilometre journey, what sort of things would you need to make sure you got to your destination okay? Give me some ideas. Fuel, absolutely. What else? A map, yep. What else? Food, yep. What was that? You got to plan your trip, exactly. You got to know your destination. You need to know where you're going. You need to be able to, focus. You need the fuel. You need a map. You need a co-pilot or you're going to get exhausted. You need fuel stations because you're going to run out. And you need some music because you've got to make it fun, don't you? So these are the 8 things that I found in my research. And what I did through the research, it was speaking with like hundreds of doctors and identifying the ones who were thriving compared to the ones who weren't. What I found really interesting is by the end of this process, within a couple of minutes, I knew what the answers were going to be from the people who were thriving because they were so consistent across these doctors. So we look at it. We need a destination. Purpose is important. You've heard it from everyone up here. It's really important that we remember why we became doctors in the first place. I remember, again, speaking at this to these medical students, and you had the medical students who were up there and they were speaking, they're enthused, and they were, felt something great about this profession. They want to make a difference. Then you had the first-year house officers who'd been there for 1 year, and the difference was unbelievable. They were tired, they were cynical, they were struggling. Not like me here. I mean, the difference was profound. And one of the things I found, from talking to doctors, a really great tool to use to get back into that state of service is to ask yourself a question as you're driving in every morning or going to the office. How can I go into the hospital? How can I serve greatly today? And before you see every patient, how can I serve this person greatly? Get back into that state of service, and doctors feel much better about what it is they're doing. Doctors who practice things like mindfulness and meditation, it does work. It is useful. Now, I've struggled with meditation because sitting still for 20 minutes at a time is difficult. So what I found with that is just find what works for you. It may be that you actually just do some deep mindful breaths. 4 breaths can actually make a difference. The doctors who are thriving looked after themselves. They looked after their physiology and they looked after their mindset. They didn't just let those things become victims of, prioritizing their work, prioritizing everything. Now, I'm going to actually share with you a link after this so you can actually access a lot of the resources to give you a lot more insight into each of these things. Because, telling you about it's like trying to tell you about the smell of a rose. But, so one of the things I found is I did some research into, how could doctors, if you work in a long day, you've got long hours, how can you actually accelerate the results you need? And one of the things I found, a study done by NASA, was that 30 sit-stands, so going from this position to this position, doing that 30 times in a day, was the equivalent of getting 30 minutes of moderate cardiovascular exercise. Now, I don't know how peer-reviewed it was, but I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So what I do is whenever I go to the bathroom, I do 10 squat jumps. And I know people think it looks ridiculous, but I know that if I'm got a busy day and I haven't got time to exercise, I'm still getting some benefit throughout the day. A map, momentum, positive movement towards things that matters. The doctors who are thriving don't just prioritize their career. The doctors who are great doctors are not just prioritizing their career. They're making movement in all the areas of their life that matter. Health and well-being, career, relationships, finance, maybe spirituality and contribution, whatever it is that's important to them. But they keep that moving forward. I found it incredible. I mean, some of the doctors I was speaking to, someone like Fiona Wood, she was Australian of the Year. She pioneered spray-on skin, like this incredible doctor. And, she said something I thought was pretty profound. She said, I always want to make sure that, leave something of the best of you for those who mean the most to you. She prioritized family. She did all that and she had 4 children. So we keep that movement going. That's what makes us thrive as doctors. Ironically, purely prioritizing ourselves as doctors in our careers actually doesn't help us to thrive. Now, the co-pilot piece, we need leverage. You've heard it from a couple of people up here, but the doctors who are thriving don't try and do everything themselves. They build teams around themselves, not just professionally, but actually personally. I live on 10 acres, and I don't own a lawnmower. I knew that if I bought a ride-on mower, I'd want to do it myself. So it was a strategic decision not to do it, so that I can't spend 6 hours a weekend mowing the lawns. That's not the best use of my time. As doctors, I think leverage is about actually stripping away the things that we don't have to do so that we can spend the time on the things that we are important. No one else can give you a 6-pack of abs. No one else can be, the husband or wife. No one else can be the parent. Prioritize those things and just pay for people to do the stuff that doesn't matter. They also had a way of filling themselves up throughout the day. We haven't got time to talk about that. But they had fun. That was something that was so common across these doctors. So if you want to get access to all of the resources related to that, they've got an online program. Go to this URL, medrecruit.com/be-exceptional, and you get free access to the whole program. As I said, it's an online delivery thing. I can't really do it justice today, but it was sort of my way of creating something, a resource for doctors that they could use. But the reality is, isn't it, that if 50% of doctors are burnt out, we've got an issue with the system. And that's just the reality. A lot of well-being programs focus on the individual, and that is helpful. The individual can only do what the individual can do. In 1969, there was a strike of the garbage workers in New York, and the rubbish just started piling up. And then there became a real issue with rats. Rats started running rampant across the city. For us to say that doctors looking after themselves is the problem is like saying that New York had a rat problem. It had a garbage problem. We've got a garbage problem, not a rat problem. And so that means that organizations have to change. How does that look? We have to fully staff our organizations. Organizations that try and run, and try and make it work within the rosters that they've got without actually bringing in the people they need, they're burning out their doctors. We need to optimize our practice. We need to utilize things like technology. The junior doctors don't have to be bloody, what was he described as? Paperwork and...
Taking notes, filling out forms.
Yeah, great. We can automate some of this sort of stuff, can't we? The days of having to go in and actually look up all your individual patient blood tests are ridiculous. We should optimize what we're doing. We need to focus on well-being because it is important that we have the ability to have lunch and the ability to exercise and things. We also need leadership brought in as well. And I think that's the opportunity. There's a lot of leaders in this room. That's the opportunity we have. We have the chance to shift the culture, to change the tide of who we are as a profession. Because the reality is you guys matter. What you do really matters. I have such a privilege now because as a doctor but not working, practicing medicine, I get to go out and I get to come back in. And whenever I go back into the hospitals, I'm blown away by what doctors do. You guys are bloody awesome, but you've forgotten about it sometimes. For a physician to be able to, take a sick person and make them better. For a pediatrician to be able to look after a child and heal them. A surgeon who's got someone open on the table and to be able to be, inside them. It's bloody amazing. And, the anaesthetist playing Sudoku, they're amazing at it. But you guys are bloody brilliant. But you forget about it. And you matter. And your patients matter too. And your families and the people you care about. I have a belief that I'm right where I need to be right now. I always believe that. I believe you're right where you need to be right now. Everything in your life, career, personal, good times, bad times, struggles, victories, has led you to this moment. And where you go from here is 100% your choice. And to me, that is exciting. That's the opportunity we have to change our profession for the better, for the next generation, but also for our colleagues, for the people sitting next to you. If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for them. We're bloody altruistic as doctors, so let's focus on the guy next to you and the girl next to you as well as ourselves. You get the choice to choose what team you're going to be on. And I'd encourage you to, do things. Get clear on why, on what you do matters. Remind yourself that we're here to serve. Show up, engage in the moment. Look after your mind, look after your body. Set exciting outcomes, move towards them. Set goals in different areas of your life. Build a team around you. Fill yourself up throughout the day and remember to have some fun. The team that you choose to be on really matters. The decision that you make really matters. You can choose to make no changes. You can choose to be on the incumbent team. And that's the cowardly option. That's the option that doesn't look after each other. That's the option that doesn't look after the next generation. The courageous option is choosing to be part of the change. It's choosing to be the change that you want to see, making the changes that you want to see in your colleagues, in yourself. And let's leave this profession better than we found it. We're part of something great. Medicine is a great profession. We do work that matters. Let's make it better for that next generation and for the patients and leave something better than we found it. Thank you.